Welcome to Tech Debts. This week we are shining a light on the Tech Industry Layoffs, February 19th through the 23rd. Plus, since this is our first installment, we'll take a look at some of the larger layoffs that occurred earlier in the year. And the goal is to continue to keep a pulse on the tech industry economics, the sort of broader picture of layoffs, and the business outlook within the tech industry, and continue to shine a light on some of that information, since a lot of the smaller and mid-sized companies that are experiencing significant layoffs really don't make the news in a mainstream way. So let's get into it. So first company to talk about, this was a recent layoff. So this was reported February 22nd officially, but Affirm is the buy now, pay later company. And you've probably seen them. You've seen their little Affirm logo. Anytime you go do a checkout in an e-commerce platform, you buy something online, you go to checkout, you'll see that option for Affirm, buy now or whatever it is for, 4 payments or 6 payments or whatever. I absolutely loathe this company. I don't think as much as what they do is a utility, eliminating barriers to people's impulse control when we have what are we now? Over $1.1 trillion in credit card debt in the US right now, I think is the current number. We don't need to make going into debt easier right now. So the interesting thing in this is that they're making these cuts, but their earnings have been strong. So that is interesting. However, what is likely happening this year, or at least what I foresee, is people are getting smarter about their money. They're caring more about their finances, their budgeting. They're creating budgets for the first time, maybe ever in their life, especially the kind of Gen Z millennial crowd. They're feeling it. They're feeling the inflation and they're feeling the burn. So I imagine a lot of them are steering clear of consuming debt like this and taking on more debt that they don't have to. There are a lot of people who, without hesitation, utilize a service like this. And it's sad because, again, I don't think we need to make taking debt on easier. I think it's literally the opposite. We should have the opposite. That's my little rant. Anyways, but Affirm cutting 140 jobs last week, which is 6% of its workforce. Of course, consolidating their operations teams. Everyone talks about all of these layoffs have a similar theme to them: streamlining operations, reducing, unnecessary or underperforming groups, whatever the case is. So it's all a lot of streamlining the workforce. But of course, there's always more to it than that, right? That's just the newswire version of things. So, and then just another note here, the company laid off 19% of its workforce in February of last year. So they've had, I believe these are the only 2 main cuts they've had, or they've had a couple cuts since last year, but the first part of last year was a significant one at 19%. All right, up next, Veritone. Okay, Veritone is one of those sort of generic AI companies. They do AI for anyone and everyone. They service a bunch of industries. So they announced a 14% reduction in their workforce as, again, here's another one of the themes, restructuring efforts. They anticipate up to $2 million in costs for severance and termination expenses. That seems really low for a 14% reduction, which means a lot of people are not getting severances. Big surprise. They want to boost operational efficiency, growth, blah, 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 innovations. Yeah. So the CEO commits to aligning their strategy with the market conditions for long-term success. No one cares. And despite past strategic implementations, further organizational streamlining is planned to leverage disruptive growth opportunities and respond to increasing demand. Okay. I'm sorry, I kind of aggregated some of this information from sources, so it's a little cringe. But anyways, but it's a big layoff, big company. So, one of those supposedly burgeoning, bleeding edge areas of AI technologies for other industries, enterprise AI, and clearly they are struggling. All right, so I wanted to do a nice little consolidated look at the journalism industry because they continue to get hammered, and rightfully so. This holds a special place in my heart as somebody who has worked here in Silicon Valley on some pretty significant news platform products. I have actually met with and worked with a lot of these publications. In fact, every single one except the Messenger at the end here that we'll talk about. But BuzzFeed, Vice, and now this, which are recent layoff victims. I've worked with all of them in terms of just some of their corporate editorial teams and stuff like that. But essentially, yeah, this industry is getting hammered. So BuzzFeed's getting rid of 16%. They're selling Complex, which is one of their popular titles. And I just had to throw in there, it could very well be to do with their horrible content, which it is. BuzzFeed's content has been, worse than even like a grocery store check stand tabloid, to be honest. I think it's just stupid, mind-numbing content that people really just don't care about anymore. So, and just to paint the picture, here's a couple article titles. 11 delightful poems found in Pornhub comments, and 10 signs your cat is a wizard. So again, very tabloidy, kind of just stupid. It's not even like funny stupid, it's just stupid. It's just dumb. Like, you can imagine a bunch of children gathering in the office over there at BuzzFeed in New York to figure out what content they're going to work on that week. And just stupid, like daycare level ideas getting thrown around, clearly. So they ended last year with more than $150 million in debt. They're not very profitable. I should say, I guess they're profitable, but they are making profit technically, obviously, but it's just nowhere near the level it needs to be. Vice Media laying off several hundred employees. They filed for bankruptcy last year, as you may know. They're actually going to be shutting down Vice.com, and they'll focus only on social media channels. So you can imagine that whole operation shrinking considerably as they continue to try and find relevancy. Now this, they're laying off 50%. So this is a bit of a smaller group, but they really came in hard with the pivot to video thing that happened a few years back when all the digital written media was starting to lose its luster several years ago. A lot of publications started pivoting heavily into video and video content, video production, especially with YouTube and other video-based social media, Twitter, now X. The video emphasis was real, and so now this, which some of you may be familiar with, that's their name, the title, they went heavily into that. And I'll admit they did have some good content, like some of the things they covered in video were pretty interesting topics, but they were spun off by, so they were owned by Vox Media. They were spun off in 2023, and they've just suffered massively. So last one here was the Messenger. They are completely shuttered. So this was started by the same person who owns The Hill, which is a pretty popular political commentary publication out of DC. They started just literally in May of last year. They had projected themselves making $100 million in 2024 and only made $3 million at the end of last year. And then just for quick context of this is BuzzFeed's stock ticker from, I believe, their IPO. Yeah, this is their IPO. And as you can see, this is where they are today. 21 cents a share. What a bargain. Okay, here's a big one. Rivian, February 21st, this was reported. So they're reducing workforce by 10%. That's pretty significant for a big manufacturer like they are. So their production forecast is matching 2023. So obviously, especially when you're a young company like this, you want to see ideally exponential growth year over year in terms of your projections of output. So they're keeping theirs the same as last year, which is not a good sign. They had previous layoffs already last year, 2022 and through 2023. Salaries impacting, layoffs impacting salaried and some hourly non-manufacturing roles. High interest rates, yeah, we know. Cars, expensive. no buy. Plans to launch more affordable vehicles soon. Focus on cost reduction. Yep. R2 targets. The 45. Oh, this is one of their models. So they're trying to do a cheap car, basically. So right now they have the SUV and the pickup truck, both of which have been really popular. There's a lot of those floating around in most major cities now. And then they also had the deal with Amazon, because Amazon was one of their most significant bankroll investors. They created the new van, which has been rolling out. I've seen some of those cruising around, but I don't know I don't know what the exact state is of those. I feel like I see some of them randomly. Like, I've not consistently seen them in my neighborhood. Like, sometimes I see one doing deliveries and then they're just gone, and it's just like the regular transit vans. So I don't know what the deal is, why they're not like gaining, saturation with all of the Amazon vans they've been producing. But yeah. Finder. So Finder is a comparisons shopping site, and they essentially, if you go there, you can compare just like different products, credit cards, I think, or other like financial products, but a bunch of other stuff too. And then if you end up doing a purchase through them, they just essentially get a kickback. So it's similar to kind of like Amazon's affiliate model. But as you can imagine, everyone's cutting back on spending with the economy the way that it is. So they're cutting 70% of their workforce, which is just 60 people, but 17% of the company, that's still pretty significant. And that's their third round of layoffs in 12 months. So I don't even know. They may. I didn't find exactly the percentages of the previous layoffs, but they may be very well up to 30 or even 40% of their entire company prior to these layoffs now being laid off. So kind of a big deal. Sonder. So this is a short-term rental company, Airbnb kind of thing. I believe they own the properties, if I'm not mistaken, or at least I don't know much about their business model, but they have like several thousand properties within their bucket, their umbrella of operation, and do they all over the world at this point. So very similar to kind of Airbnb or VRBO. They're laying off 106 corporate employees. 70% of that workforce is to cut costs and address underperforming properties. Layoffs aim for $11 million in savings, with costs of $2 to $3 million for severance. So again, they have 106 people. Yeah, I mean, that severance is pretty terrible, even for 106 people. You can imagine like that might account for a month or two per person, and I guarantee you out of this 106, not all of them are getting a severance, so that sucks. That's just my guess. I could be wrong. This follows previous rounds of layoffs, which they had in March of last year, where they let go 100 employees, and then in June of 2022, they did 21% of their corporate and 7% of frontline roles. So some of these companies are just hemorrhaging. I mean, for some of them, all of this started 2 years ago now, and they're just continuing to just not get what they need. And like, it's kind of scary because I feel like this year is going to actually continue to be pretty significantly bad economically. And so, I don't think a lot of people attribute things to, all of the money that flooded into the tech industry after 2020, and with all of the printed money flowing in. And so there's all this hiring, and everything seemed like it was doing great, and all this remote work that people were flocking to and companies were hiring for, and now that's all drying up. But I think it's more significant than that. I think it's a combination of who's managing their money poorly as well. And yes, there's probably over hiring, but generally I would say there's probably a combination of who's been managing their money well in the first place, and also just, this is a reckoning moment for tech. The better ideas or the better higher utility companies are going to survive. And so we're just shaking off some of these kind of copycat or, unimpressive business models. Toast. So this was a big one. A personal friend of mine was affected by this directly, and they were in management. So and I think it was their entire team actually ended up being laid off. But Toast is the point of sale terminal service. So you go to it's like one of those newer things, but you go to a coffee shop or a small boutique type store, and they got the little swivel screen with the white case around it. It has Toast. Actually, I think they have like the nice silver one with the credit card reader now or whatever it is. But anyway, so they make that kind of hardware for point of sale transactions. They're announcing a 10% workforce reduction. That's going to be 550 employees. So this all happened a little while ago too, by the way. This is going backwards in time. So some of this stuff has already fully been realized. So this is an interesting thing because their earnings exceeded expectations. Their revenue has grown, and they're committing to a share buyback program, which, okay, fine, that's something. They did have their stock downgraded. But when you see stuff like this is something that really sucks about the tech industry. When a company's doing well and they're still doing layoffs, a lot of times that is a strategic move to basically make them look better for an acquisition. So I'm not saying that that's what is happening here, but when you see like the money's good, they're not hemorrhaging money, they're doing well, their profits are good, stock changes, so like the stock rating downgrade, I don't know that would necessarily be like, okay, we need to get rid of a bunch of people, but it's an unfortunate thing in the executive leadership world that if you want to make your company look really good because you're pushing and trying to get an acquisition and get an exit, you do layoffs, and it's horrible because most people think, oh, layoff, the company's struggling, we're doing poorly, they don't need they don't need me anymore. Literally, it could be the complete opposite of that, and all they are doing is, shaving off the absolute least important individuals in their mind, the things that they can get rid of and keep the company moving forward in a positive way, just to make the balance sheet look better for an acquisition. So that does happen. All right, so this is a little bit older now, but Instacart laying off 250 employees, which was 7% of its workforce, restructuring. Fourth quarter earnings were good. The shares dropped. Again, not super uncommon after a lot of companies announce good earnings and then their stock falls apart for a period of time. So yeah, they're aiming to flatten the organization. 3 executives are leaving, and only the CTO position is being refilled, which is interesting. But again, a lot of these companies, start getting, I would say, a little bit apathetic when they get to be a certain point, and the executives start thinking, oh, yeah, we could do with some BS roles, like we could get a chief revenue officer, which, like, let's be honest, like it's a made up role. I'm sorry if you're a chief revenue officer. It's a made up role. It's a made up job. Despite the challenges, Instacart aims for growth through AI and machine learning. Okay, cool. Yeah. I don't know how that works, but I don't want AI picking my groceries for me. So I don't really know where the correlation is there. PayPal, you may have already known about this. This was a while ago now, beginning of the year. They cut 9% of its workforce, which is, they're a huge company now. So that was 2,500 jobs. They've had pretty tumultuous, decade, I would say, separating from eBay. eBay, that's a whole nother story. eBay was just bleeding PayPal dry. eBay's kind of where tech workers go to die. Sorry if you work at eBay. That's just the word amongst the community. I actually, know some folks over there, and they are, I wouldn't say happy individuals. This move follows a previous layoff of 2,000 employees, which was 7% of the workforce last year. So they are up to now 16% minimum. So I don't know what I didn't look all the way back to see if there were additional layoffs prior to that, but it's pretty significant. It's a lot of people. All right, Aurora Solar. I didn't know anything about this company. They do software for solar, so I don't know exactly who they service, but 20% of their workforce. Again, this is one of those interesting things because you have companies like Tesla who their solar and energy business is doing incredibly well. And you have obviously lots of people are just trying to save money. They're looking for ways to save money. Some people are fronting the costs. Businesses are fronting the costs for solar because it's cuts down on their utilities, helps them be a little more efficient in that way. And obviously, utility costs are all over the map. Depending on where you live, there's been tons of volatility in just utility bills, gas and electric. So again, I'm not super knowledgeable on their exact business model, but anyone in the solar and energy industry facing this kind of regression is interesting. So they've had a lot of funding. Obviously, interest rates are affecting them. California's net metering policy and shifting towards battery-inclusive solar installations presents challenges. So I don't know why that would present a challenge. There's a lot of people who don't necessarily do backup batteries when they do installs. I know that is becoming more common, but it's still, I would argue, is not a very common thing. It's still kind of a optional extra for people. So anyways, they're saying, they're just having a lot of competition here, but that very well could be. But nonetheless, pretty large, layoff there for that company. Jamf. So Jamf is a kind of a weird niche company, but they're still pretty prominent. Essentially, they have software tools that if you're a company and you have Apple computers that your staff use, Jamf is sort of a device management system. So it lets you load in software applications for your workers depending on their role, and just basically manage your internal computers if they are Apple computers. So this is a very common program. A lot of companies that have Macs for their staff use this. They're having a 6% reduction. Nothing too remarkable other than that. So based on their head count, as of 2022, that would be about 170 employees being affected, 6% of their total of 2,796. And so this is part of broader trends in the tech sector, as we've all seen. And let's just sum things up here. The Closed Doors Club, 100% layoffs. So these are very small companies for the most part that have just completely gone under. Rest in peace. I feel for all of you. As somebody who has worked in startups and done my own startup, I know the pain that this is. And in some cases, these were, there were a couple dozen people already working in some of these. So they had decent funding in some cases. Weaveworks, software company, didn't get the specific count, but they are completely closed. Threshold Games, a little game development studio, 12 people, no more. Wesense, they did some kind of hardware sensor. Again, didn't see the total number for them. Jornera, it's a software company, 20 people in there, 100% layoff. Workfellow, another software company, gone, bye-bye. Astarte Medical, Astarte, whatever it is. Some kind of office management software for pediatricians, I believe. Small robot company. They were an ag tech company. That's a bummer because I think ag tech is super cool and there's still a ton of potential there. Twig, fintech company, they're gone. Cake, I'd never heard of their company before, but super interesting. Electric motorcycles. That's a tough one. So Zero is the big player in the EV motorcycle world. Their stuff is super cool, super high quality, but the problem with electric motorcycles is actual motorcyclists, and as somebody who is a motorcyclist, I can speak to this. I don't want to ride around on a silent 100-mile-an-hour capable scooter. I want people to hear me if I'm on my motorcycle. I want people to be aware of my presence around them if I'm on the freeway or whatever. So I want my bike to make some noise for my safety is the reason for that. Kickapay, fintech company, no more. Kova, another fintech. PaySme, fintech. So as you can imagine, like we saw with Affirm, PayPal, financial related businesses are being hammered. People are not spending as much. Inflation is raging. Anything where there's interest rates involved are getting very volatile. So not a surprise to see a lot of fintech companies completely going under here. And then last, CodeC, which was 15 people, software company. They are no longer. Thanks for watching. If you found this video insightful and want to continue to be updated on the layoffs that are occurring within the tech industry, subscribe, like this video. If you have recently been impacted by a layoff within tech, leave a comment and I'll do my best to follow up with you.